Hi, I'm Christine, and I'm here to answer questions that you have brought up with me. And today I'm answering the question, how do I stop saying all the time? So let's talk about what this sound is. Is what's called a hesitation sound. So effectively, it's a little filler sound that we use when we're thinking, either in the middle of a thought or in between our thoughts, as a way of signaling to who we're talking to that we're not done yet. We're just thinking about what it is that we want to say next. I want to start by saying that everybody makes this sound, including me. So we don't need to eradicate this sound completely, right? This is something that we all do. It's very human. It's very normal. However, if you feel like it's a sound that is happening repeatedly over and over again as you talk, it can really start to muddy your thoughts and make it really difficult to keep up with what you're trying to say. So in that situation, it might be worth taking a look at what other options you have besides making that sound when you're trying to think through the next thing you're going to say. As with anything that you're working on, I would advise you not to work on it by saying to yourself, stop saying Okay. All that's going to do is make you really self-conscious. It's going to make you start listening to yourself. It's going to make you start beating yourself up every time you make the sound, right? And probably what that's going to do is it's going to make the problem worse. So let's try a different way in. Instead, what if we take that little filler sound, or even better, what if we take the impulse to make the filler sound as a little signal from the body? It's a little signal from the body that you need a moment to think. You need a moment to think through what's going to be the next part of your sentence, or what's going to be the next thought now that you've finished this sentence. So we're going to see if we can try to catch. Sometimes this happens unconsciously. We just find ourselves making the sound without realizing that we were going to make it. Don't worry if that's how the process starts. Even then, notice, okay, that was the moment. Can I start to recognize the impulse before that moment to make the sound? And can that become a little signal that you need a little pause? You need a moment to regroup so that you can think. And here's the thing. There is a better way, a healthier way, a more productive way to use that moment of pause when you need to think, which is, can you allow yourself to breathe? So a lot of us feel like we need to fill those moments of silence, right? That's part of why we make the So instead of taking a moment to breathe, we fill the space with and we do that for a variety of reasons. We might do that because we're worried that we're going to get interrupted, so we feel like we have to keep filling the space. We might do that because paradoxically we're worried that we're taking up too much of people's time, so we don't want there to be any silence in what we're saying, because there's this perception that if we say instead of just letting there be a moment of silence, that takes less time. It's actually the same amount of time to say as it is to take a little breath. But for whatever reason, we have this idea that, I don't want to take up too much of your time, so I'm not going to give myself space to breathe. But because you need space to think, you start saying filler words instead. So let's use those little moments to, instead of making that sound, can you allow yourself to breathe instead? Now, what that does is that oxygenates your brain. When your brain gets oxygen, it thinks better. So you are going to be more articulate in what you're saying because you've just given your brain a little oxygen hit. You've just given your body a chance to catch up with what you're trying to say. Whereas takes more oxygen. So it's not helping you get the breath that you need to power the next thought. Your breath is also the power source for your voice. So in those moments of pause where you're allowing yourself to breathe instead of say you're also ensuring that you have the power you need to speak your next thought in terms of your airflow. If it's feeling very hard to allow yourself to breathe because it requires that tiny moment of silence instead of sound, and there's something that makes you feel self-conscious about that, let's reframe this. When you give yourself that moment to breathe, it's not only generous to you, it's generous to your listener. When anybody is listening to you, they're always playing catch up with you in terms of they're always trying to catch up with what you are trying to say. And if you are never not talking, if you're always filling the air with ums, first of all, it's really hard for them to chart the thought, where it begins, where it's going, and where it's going to end. And it never gives them that little moment of catch up that your breathing allows for. If you actually use that moment to just take a breath instead of say it gives them a moment to take a breath and actually catch up with the last thing that you just said. So you're going to be more grounded and calm in your communication, and they're going to be more grounded and calm as they listen to you because they're not feeling anxious about keeping up with what you're trying to say. What I'm not talking about here is adding pauses in just for the sake of adding pauses, and we're not talking about lengthening the pause for effect. This is simply using a moment that is already happening, and instead of filling it with feeling that impulse to make that sound and taking a breath instead. It takes the same amount of time, but it just means that your thoughts are clearer, you're thinking better, and it's easier to keep up with you. If you start to think of these moments that way, this little signal from your body, this desire to say can actually become a real gift. It can be the signal to you that what you actually need to do is just allow yourself to breathe for a moment, which is going to help you be so much calmer in your communication. This is especially helpful when the stakes are high or you're feeling a little bit anxious about the communication act. It's just going to help ground you in your body in a way that that filler sound just won't. This is a great question. It's something that a lot of us deal with, so thank you very much. Give this a try. It's going to take some practice. It might feel a little bit artificial at first, but that's okay. Give it a try, see how it goes, let me know. If you found this useful, please share, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Please get in touch and ask me some questions, and they might be featured on future videos. See you next time.